How's it going, YouTube? It's Sunday. I've got an unusual amount of time on my hands today, which is nice, but it is what it is. Anyway, just finished up lunch, and I was reading some news, and this story came across, and it's about how the city of Santa Monica in California has just approved a $1 million per unit project to build apartments or an apartment complex of some sort in order to house homeless folks, which on the one hand sounds like a good idea, on the other sounds extraordinarily more expensive than it should be to build an apartment complex. But then again, this is California we're talking about, so the dollars do not make sense in California or when it comes to anything about California. But this just apparently is days after an audit revealed that California is unable to properly account for where $24 billion of taxpayer money has gone as it pertains to the homelessness problem. And when I say cannot account for $24 billion, I mean $24 billion between 2018 and 2023, or maybe it was 2019 and 2023. But anyway you slice it, averaging about, let me see, by five, around $4 billion a year, give or take, in money allegedly spent to combat homelessness, and yet the state cannot account for it, and the agency that is in charge of agencies, good redundancy there, California, that is supposed to coordinate all these things, is trying to pin the blame on local municipalities, saying they should be held more accountable. And it's like, on the one hand, the homelessness problem is easier to fix than we all think it is, and on the other, all people are in California are doing is just throwing away good money for no return on the investment for the public. Taxpayer money is supposed to result in a benefit for the taxpayer. That's why we have an interstate system. That's why we have the world's foremost military. It's why we have, incredible telecommunications. It's why we have a lot of really good stuff in this country. It's because taxpayer funding has made a lot of these things possible. And while not a single one of us likes to pay taxes, especially having just come through tax season, all of us like the benefits that we get from our taxes, meaning usually decent law enforcement, usually decent first responder service, usually decent power, water, and road infrastructure. And I say usually because there are plenty of examples to the contrary, but that's a whole different argument for a whole different time. But the nuts and the bolts of this are this. The nuts and the bolts of this issue, to me, are this. And I'm going to put my oar in my mouth here because I feel like it, and say that if people really want to get serious about combating homelessness, the first thing to do when it comes to dealing with homelessness is that any state with a homeless population, or people who are unhomed, unhoused, whatever the PC term is, any state that wants to deal with their homeless population has to first pass this law. And this law is my idea, and it would require any agency or agencies or group or groups or foundation or foundations, anyone or any entity who wants to do something for homelessness must provide a plan and a budget that outlines exactly what they want to do, how much money they need, what they're going to spend it on, and then a clear accounting of how that money is being spent. Any money wasted or spent improperly is then fined to that entity and must be repaid to the government, whether it's local, state, or federal, that first authorized those funds to be dispersed in the first place. This will provide accountability. This will also require homeless advocacy and assistance groups and foundations and whoever else to actually put together a plan that will result in homelessness being tackled. The second thing they have to do, once that law is passed, now it's time to put in place the systems and the parameters by which homeless people can be forcibly removed from the streets. I'm going to say that again. Put in place the systems and parameters by which homeless people can be forcibly removed from the streets, because a homeless person on the streets is, in my opinion, a danger to the public welfare, because that homeless person could be extraordinarily sick. That homeless person could be a horrible drug addict. That homeless person could be some sort of serial criminal, someone with a history of sexual assault or domestic violence or whatever. And it is imperative that we get these people off the streets, because leaving them on the streets does not assist them in any capacity. In no way are people who are left on the street assisted by anything done that leaves them on the street. I don't even care if you give them a tent. That's not enough. Get them off the street. Get them into a domicile structure into which they can be permanently housed for the duration of their homelessness. And once you've removed these folks from the streets, now it's time to put them to work, because money has been spent to get them off the street. Now it's time for that investment to be recouped by essentially putting these folks to work in such a way where the cost of their housing, their food, and their care is offset by the work they return to the entity for which they are working, meaning local, state, federal government, or a foundation or whoever. What kind of work can they do? Whatever work is possible. Get them into job placement programs, teach them how to weld, teach them how to operate heavy machinery, run them through detox programs to make sure they're clean and addiction free. Find out who among them are the criminals, and then put those criminals in jails, because that's where they belong, as criminals. And then through this system, now that they're off the street, now that they're in a work program of some sort where they are providing value for the local community, especially in San Francisco, where the homeless could be used to clean up the mess the homeless make, in terms of all the piles of human waste on the sidewalks that you could track with an app, and the needles and the God knows what all. Once that's been done, now you put in place a program right along with this, where as this person is working, the money that they would be paid in terms of hourly or salary wage, that gets broken down into, firstly, a very small allowance. Secondly, the money that is taken or that is garnished from their wages and their earnings to offset the cost of their housing. And thirdly, the remainder, once taxes have been taken care of, because of course they're going to be made to pay taxes like we all are. Thirdly, leftover money is put into an account for them. And once that account reaches a certain value, say, let's call it $25,000, just for fun, $25,000. Once that account hits $25,000, then that person now has a marketable skill. They've got work experience in that skill. They've been checked out for addiction and other health issues, and they're what's the word I'm looking for here? There it is, that's the term. A productive member of society. Once they've met those criteria, now it's like, okay, you've got this money in this account. This money is now yours. Taxes have been paid on it. And now It's yours to use as the foundation by which you, meaning the homeless person, can now go out into the world on your own, find a place to live, go anywhere in the country, buy a car, do whatever you got to do in order to restart your life. And you can take that money and go anywhere. Stay in California if you want, for example, or move east. Head to the Midwest, go to Wyoming, go to Montana, go to Idaho, wherever you can find a job and keep that job and stay off the street. Because the purpose of this is not to take the homeless away and lock them up as an eyesore or an affront to public service, public safety and public decency, but it's to get them to a position where they can no longer be homeless because they have been put through a system that takes away their homelessness in terms of both money that they have earned as well as making sure they're a safe person, in a manner speaking, as well as making sure that they have a skill that will be useful to themselves and by extension the public and the economy and the tax base, wherever they're going to end up living. So that's how I would fix homelessness. Yes, it would be compulsory. Yes, there would be court cases and battles over the legality of being able to forcibly remove somebody from a situation and then place them in another situation against their will. But homelessness is not a problem, in my opinion, where the solution is something that's done to the homeless with the homeless person's permission. It must be forced, because people are using homelessness as an excuse to grift. It's a smaller group, I'm sure, than the larger whole, but even so, homelessness requires a dramatic, radical, possibly even a violent solution by which power is applied to these people, in my opinion, for their own good. Because they are not, and they have not been seeking opportunities to get themselves out of their situation. And of course, there's myriad reasons for why that is. And that's a much more complicated argument than I have the information to properly explain or discuss or enter into a discourse with. But when I see the state of California has wasted $24 billion that could have been spent in a whole lot of better ways to benefit the people of California in a wide variety of projects, even if I was a card-carrying, hard-left, liberal Californian, I'd be mad. I'd be fed up. I'd be like, you know what? Enough is enough. It's time to get new people in government who are actually going to deal with this problem in a way that solves it and doesn't just throw money away to people who are going to spend it toward their buddies and will make sure they get the appropriate kickbacks for election season. No, it needs to be a new direction. And that is, in my opinion, forcing the homeless off the streets, but in such a way in which the homeless person, when they come out of that program, benefits from that program directly and then tangentially become a benefit to the community around them. It's not about imposing upon them a new form of jail sentence. It's about imposing upon them a new direction for their life that will result in a benefit and a better life than they were leading before this program, in my mind, comes along and changes everything about where they're at, what they're doing, how they're living life. But I'm just one truck driver in the Midwest. I'm not a politician. I'm not a president. I'm not a governor. Certainly I'm not a lawyer. So I don't have, shall we say, the best solution to this problem. But I do know that what is being done isn't working. Taxpayer money is being wasted, and the taxpayer is deriving no benefit because the homeless problem is continuing to either sustain or get worse depending on where you're at in the country. And it's 2024. We're the foremost power in the world. We are the richest country in the world in many respects. Not all respects, but in many respects. Depending on how you look at the stats, other countries are much richer, but when you break it all down, USA number one across the board, more or less. So the fact that we as a nation across different states are allowing this problem to continue without utilizing our enormous power and capital to address it in a way that benefits both the homeless and the communities around them is nothing short of criminal act, in my opinion. And the people who are allowing this to happen in government should be removed from office and arrested and have it made impossible for them to ever hold public office ever again, because these people are taking our money, yours and mine, and they are wasting it on projects that do not have any real benefit but to keep them in power so they can be seen to be doing something as opposed to actually bringing about a result that benefits the homeless as well as everyone around them. But that's my rant for now. YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Hope I don't get blacklisted or banned. And with that being said, I'll see you down the road.